Afternoon, everyone. My name's Lauren and I'm in the marketing and international teams here at the Birmingham Chambers of Commerce. We're really excited to have Dr. Michaela Kendall here today from one of our members, Adelan, who's going to discuss green recovery. I know that sustainable business is a topic that we all think about in business, so I'm just really excited for today's content. I know we've got a few other videos and speakers to play, so it should be really good. Just to note that we'll be using the chat box throughout the event, so please put any questions or comments in there. There will be time for Q&A at the end, and we are recording the webinar too, so it will all be available on our YouTube channel after. So I'm going to hand over to Michaela now, who's going to pick up and do the introduction.
Okay, thanks, Lauren, and welcome everyone to this webinar on the Midlands Green Recovery. We've got 3 speakers today, and hopefully they'll give you a good picture of fuel cells and hydrogen in the Midlands and how they are integrated into the Midlands Green Recovery. So if you've got any questions during the webinar, please submit them to the chat box. And please note that this is being recorded. You'll be able to find this later on YouTube. So I think we've got the first poll, and we're going to ask a quick question of all the attendees. So Lauren, are you ready with that? Yeah, so the first poll is, post COVID-19, do you think a UK green recovery is unimportant, important, critical, or the biggest priority? If you'd just like to register your vote on that. Yeah, so the green recovery is seen as critical or the biggest priority for all of the audience. So that explains why they're all here, and I think that's it really justifies us having this discussion today. So if we can now move on to the first presentation, it's by Andrew Lound, who is a very well-known historian in Birmingham, in the Midlands, and he can tell us a little bit about the past and the history of fuel cells and hydrogen in the Midlands.
I sell here, sir, what all the world desires to have, power. The words of Matthew Boulton in 1776, the inventor and entrepreneur of Birmingham, commenting on the importance of the Boulton Watt steam engine. In the 18th century, Birmingham and the surrounding region was growing prosperous due to the iron trades, which were mostly made up of small blacksmiths and metal workshops, utilising running water and muscle power. Matthew Boulton's manufactory, at the time the largest in the world, had revolutionised manufacturing processes and marketing techniques. It was powered by the flow of Hockley Brook, which was subject to seasonal changes. To guarantee a supply of water to power his machines, Boulton dug 2 reservoirs either side of his manufactory, but he needed an efficient pump to transfer water from the outflow reservoir to the supply reservoir. The Newcomen engine was the standard pumping engine, but not as efficient as Boulton required. His introduction to James Watt, a Scottish scientific instrument maker, led Watt to send his newly developed steam engine to Birmingham, where Watt believed the most skilled workforce in the country resided. Watt moved to Birmingham and was duly impressed. Boulton was a great visionary, and he realised that Watt's engine was the most advanced in the world, and he saw an opportunity. He took Watt into partnership, forming a new company, Boulton and Watt, to produce steam engines. This company soon attracted skilled men from around the nation who headed to Birmingham, one of whom was William Murdoch, who became the company's senior engineer. Rotative motion was added, removing the need for water wheels altogether and the requirement to site factories near running rivers. Factories could operate all day, every day if need be, and at any time of the year. Bolton, Watt and Murdoch, three engineers with very different personalities, working together, had given the world what it most desired: power. It is not surprising that the Industrial Revolution sprang from the Midlands, an area noted for free thinking and innovation, filled with individuals of great skill, supported locally, driving the local economy and national developments. The region was renowned throughout the world for its excellence in engineering and skills, so much so that the United States consul to Birmingham in the 19th century, Elihu Burritt, urged his government to offer incentives to attract Birmingham workers to the United States. In the time of Bolton, Birmingham boasted many men of talent, some of whom met together in an informal group known as the Lunar Society. Manufacturers, scientists, businessmen and philosophers met to exchange ideas. All of them had skills and expertise, yet the group was very diverse in personalities, religion and politics. But they came together to exchange ideas. Their ideas would filter through the scientific and industrial community, leading to the development of medicine, engineering, botany, chemistry and physics. It was here that Joseph Priestley and James Watt discovered that water was composed of hydrogen and oxygen. Priestley commented on the discovery: "The composition of water with dephlogisticated air, oxygen, and flammable air, hydrogen, may one day form the basis of a new power." How right he was. In the 1830s, William Robert Grove, a Welsh lawyer and amateur scientist, began experimenting with electricity with the aim of developing a new kind of battery, which was called the Grove cell, using zinc and platinum electrodes exposed to two acids. He later developed the first true fuel cell, combining hydrogen and oxygen to produce electricity, with the byproduct being water. It was at a meeting of the British Association for the Advancement of Science that was held in Birmingham that he met Michael Faraday, who was so impressed that he was able to use the work of Grove to assist him in his groundbreaking theories on electricity. The generation of electricity commercially was by a number of methods, including the steam engine. This equipment was housed in large buildings requiring heavy maintenance. But the hydrogen fuel cell had not been forgotten. A number of experimenters had worked on fuel cells with limited success. Francis Thomas Bacon began work on developing a practical fuel cell. In his own time and using his own money, without any official support, he developed a hydrogen fuel cell that powered a tractor. Limited financial support came and developments continued, but no one was sure how it could be applied, and parts of the design were even covered under the Official Secrets Act. If any invention is to be a success, it needs three elements. 1. High quality innovation, a revolutionary design to meet a specific need in society, such as Watt's steam engine. 2. High quality industry, skills, processes and infrastructure that can actually bring the invention to market, such as Matthew Bolton's manufactory. 3. Official support, national or local government. There needs to be the will to get it done, whether this is for a national project such as the Moonshot programme or for an economic or technological need. In Bolton and Watt's case, support came from King George III. For Francis Bacon, the official support came from none other than President John F. Kennedy, who in 1961 stated, "I believe that this nation should commit itself, before this decade is out, of achieving the goal of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth." This commitment and drive would lead to the development of new technologies and processes. The Apollo spacecraft that would take men to the moon and return them safely needed a new system of power generation, one that was clean and efficient. Pratt & Whitney was the high-quality industrial company that had a contract to supply the power system for the Apollo spacecraft. They realised that Bacon had already developed what they would need, and at just the right time. They certainly had the skills. and they had the infrastructure.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Bacon's fuel cells helped put men on the moon. President Nixon stated that without them, there would have been no moonshot program. The new technology now waited for its time in the commercial arena. Although satellites and space stations utilise fuel cells, what about down here on Earth? It seemed only the science fiction writers spoke of a hydrogen-fuelled future. The world had become accustomed to solid and liquid fuels. Global economies were reliant upon it, even though from the late 1950s, scientists had been warning of the dangers of pollution. It was the space program that had brought about the first real environmental movements, but without official support, little could be done. There needed to be a change in thinking to form the will to move forward. In 1952, the Birmingham Chamber of Commerce led a campaign to get Birmingham to lead the solid fuel economy. This was an aim to rejuvenate the region after the Second World War. The skills were here. The national economy needed leadership from industry. Today in 2020, the message is similar. Post-COVID-19 is the greatest challenge that this nation has faced in 75 years. Birmingham gave industry power from hydrogen. Now help Birmingham lead the country in the green recovery. Thank you very much.
Brilliant, thank you, Andrew. And it's quite tight to fit all those globally significant events, personalities and technologies into just 10 minutes, but I think he's managed it there. So I'd just like to introduce myself. I'm the CEO of Adelan, one of a couple of fuel cell companies in the region. And we're the longest running fuel cell company in Britain. And like Francis Bacon, we've worked with countries around the world to develop the technology. The US has supported our technology. I've co-wrote the foundation documents for Fuel Cell and Hydrogen Joint Undertaking in Brussels. That was a €2 billion programme to commercialise fuel cell and hydrogen products. And I've worked with the UN Hydrogen Centre in Istanbul. It started in 2004, where they were developing the hydrogen economy for developing countries, which is so in need of power. So now I chair the Midlands trade body for fuel cells and hydrogen. I'm also the Mission Innovation UK Hydrogen Champion. And since April, I've been chairing the Low Carbon and Environmental Technologies Steering Group in Greater Birmingham LEP. So this is the voice of the low carbon sector businesses in the region, and they are the ones that can help address the climate change challenge. So we're just starting to work with the Commonwealth Chamber now on looking at new procurement practices so that the region can buy local and support local businesses. So I really want to turn now to the Midlands Green Recovery and a vision for that recovery. So first of all, I'd like to go through the landscape of who the players are locally, and first examine what the Midlands Green Recovery is. So what is it and why is it necessary? So really COVID-19 broke business as usual, and so we all had the chance to reflect on the opportunity to transition to a low carbon economy. Why is it necessary? Well, we were already thinking about an exit strategy from the carbon economy. It's essential. We could go back to business as usual. It's possible, but it would be great to accelerate the low carbon economy using this pause as stimulus. So what response is needed and what can we do? Well, internationally, everybody is accelerating towards green initiatives to build back better, as the phrase goes, and invest more in green technology. So the Midlands really needs to consider how it will also do that and compete internationally. We've got a lot to offer, as Andrew said, in history. We've offered real significant changes in energy and energy efficiency technologies. So the smart investors are also shifting those investments towards green businesses, and the region can take advantage of that and benefit from that. So green tech businesses are key stakeholders who will be leading the supply of solutions, not just working on the demand side, not just talking about the improvements that we can make to CO2, but actually delivering those CO2 reductions. So what's the response needed, and who can deliver that? Well, local governments can really support local businesses, fund the technology development they need, and hold businesses accountable. Universities can support spin-out technology, and third sector stakeholders can operate networks and support those activities. But ultimately, the businesses, the green tech businesses, must take a central role in the delivery of the solution. And if there are local solutions that are provided, then that will create jobs and stimulate the economy, which is another necessary impact of response to COVID-19. If we don't support the businesses here, the brain drain that Andrew talked about and described will be accelerated, and these investments overseas will benefit from that, and the benefit will go to other regions and countries. So we've developed a Midlands Green Recovery Action Plan within the LEP. So what do we actually need to do? So as Andrew summarised, we have a convergence now of innovation, which is fantastic throughout the region. We have a need, which is climate change, and we have quality industry in the Midlands. So it really requires government investment, both nationally and regionally, to support those Phoenix businesses emerging from a really highly skilled manufacturing ecosystem. Central government has tended not to support UK technology and hydrogen until now, but there are signs that that's changing. And the Midlands is really, in my view, an undervalued region. It's really important that the national government is able to recognise talent in the Midlands better. So I'll describe later how the Midlands was actually overlooked in a couple of BEIS, which is Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy programmes, to deploy low carbon technologies in the region to decarbonise industry. So it's really important that the region remains visible and continues to ask for that support to enable the net zero economy. Levelling up will require investment, and some of that must come to green manufacturing in the Midlands. So who shapes that action plan? Well, the LEP steering group, which I'm the chair of, has produced an action plan which supports, it's led by industry, and it supports local industry to attract investment and talent to the region. And we want to build those products to export around the world. So the action plan is now will now be shaped really by funding allocations and the businesses that take part. So I'd encourage anybody on the webinar today that if they are interested to contact the LEP. There is a low carbon group, and you can look at the low carbon action plan which has been proposed. So do get in touch with them. And I think the low carbon action plan becomes our moonshot objective to provide solutions for climate change with local ingenuity. Who can deliver on that action plan? Well, low carbon businesses. They need to grow, they need to meet the ambitions of the UK climate change strategy, and also the local industrial strategy, which quite clearly targeted the low carbon sector for significant growth in the coming years. Public investment can support that transition, but it's that public support that comes from lots of different locations. So local public institutions can support local businesses through local procurement, through inclusion in the process, through engagement in the process. And we need to compete in the UK and level up with other countries such as Japan, US, Germany and China, where governments are building industries around green technology, like fuel cells and hydrogen. The Midlands actually has all the right ingredients, and Adelan leads on fuel cells and hydrogen. The difficulty is that low carbon transition is slow. We need to speed that up. We need to accelerate it to meet the climate change challenge. So the Midlands has innovative businesses, and early innovation spins out from UK universities. We've got some great universities in the region. We remain in the early stages of the emergence of some of these technologies in these different sectors, and they need to be stimulated to commercialise those technologies. But nobody expects that to happen in universities. That commercialisation is really going to happen in the businesses supported by universities. So the technologies are emerging, but we need markets for these technologies. We need supportive local authorities that, as early adopters, we need to work together to explore all technical options and to deploy a market test to urgently commercialise these technologies. Because there are significant market barriers to low carbon and environmental technologies. I've just marked a few of them here. They include policy issues, so we must work together with regulators to understand how tax regimes and even just awareness of technology options can provide barriers to certain technologies. For example, look at fuel pricing. Diesel fuel is still subsidised up until April 2022, and there's no way that a new technology can compete commercially against a heavily subsidised technology like diesel or like nuclear. So these new low carbon technologies can only scale faster if their funding is in line with those competitors. So government, again, regulation is key. But there are other innovation chain issues which can also be addressed with using different programs and collaborations. But the vision for the Midlands hydrogen economy is actually quite clear. Kevin, in the next talk, will talk about the vision for the hydrogen economy in the UK and draw on some international examples. It's realistically very simple, but there are lots of doubts and questions still that remain. But that transition is able to begin, and we believe that hydrogen is a really useful fuel to grid balance the volatile power generation from renewable sources and generate clean hydrogen, green hydrogen. Also using biofuels as a feedstock, that's also possible, and to increase the concentration of hydrogen in pipes, or to truck pure hydrogen to different sites for use. And the applications that hydrogen or those newer fuels will go into include industrial uses, mobility, that's cars, buses, trucks, power generation and heat supply. So just a quick word on fuel cell and hydrogen technologies. The hydrogen economy is actually two different sets of technologies. So there's the fuel cell technologies which use the fuels. They don't always use exclusively hydrogen. They can use hydrocarbon gases and fuels as well. They can use ammonia, but they tend to be associated with hydrogen. And then the other aspect of the hydrogen economy is the hydrogen technologies. So the hydrogen technologies are the generators of the hydrogen, or the parts of the supply chain which support the hydrogen economy, such as gas cylinders or valves or electrolyzers. So there are really two separate business cases here, the fuel cell business case and the hydrogen business case. They're interlinked, they can be very deeply connected, but they can operate separately. So we formed a Midlands hydrogen and fuel cell network several years ago now, and this was a regional trade body representing all interests and stakeholders in the region from the ground up. So this then influences policymakers and makes the Midlands visible in this area. So Adelan and Climate Change Solutions in Coventry develop synergies and partnerships that promote and deliver low carbon solutions by lobbying for those solutions in the region. So we've worked tirelessly over the years to bring people together and maintain a continuum in the industry in the Midlands. And this is the foundation platform which we believe we can build on. So who are the most promising Midlands companies in this space, and who are those ready to lead? Well, Adelan is a pioneering fuel cell company. We started in '96, and we developed solid oxide fuel cells that are able to use hydrocarbon fuels as well as hydrogen. So we can use hydrogen. We also use biofuels as well, which we really support strongly. There's Intelligent Energy, which are a pioneering hydrogen fuel cell business based in Loughborough. They're a spin out from Loughborough University. And they have this Suzuki bike here, which amongst many other different products, and really are leading the world. They have a globally competitive technology. And then there is Microcab. Microcab is a pioneering fuel cell vehicle manufacturer in Coventry. They've this first fleet of vehicles Kevin will describe a little bit later. But the business case for these businesses is compelling. So Kevin, who will speak in 5 minutes or so, established the UK Fuel Cell Centre at the University of Birmingham, which was a first national centre to develop and demonstrate these supply chains and also products. So all of those businesses that I described are planning to manufacture locally. They're all university spin-outs, but they're independent of academia in order to succeed. They all want to grow their businesses and reshore green manufacturing and coordinate the regional Midlands public assets that include places like MIRA, MTC, the Energy Systems Catapult, the universities. There's also the Midlands Fuel Cell Incubator at BCU. This is a place where the public can see a fuel cell and professionals can join meetings and find details about the Midlands network. We've produced as a network the UK Fuel Cell Strategy. We publish that every year. It's been running now for 3 years. And this is the only UK fuel cell strategy nationally. So it does have many of these businesses that are listed engaged in deciding what they would like to see from the industry's point of view. So it's an industry-led coalition of ideas on how the industry should develop based on existing activities around the world. But the Midlands was overlooked and can be overlooked because many of the hydrogen associated clusters are around the coast. So in the northwest and Teesside and Humberside. So actually the Midlands can be overlooked in this area. So we really need to make sure that these Midlands businesses are promoted to national government, and deployment and demonstration projects are really key to do that. So the UK was very much in the lead, I would say, on fuel cell technologies, and China has very much appreciated that and has picked up the baton and invested heavily in fuel cells, including buses, cars, trucks and trams. So there's a lot of international collaboration with other countries, not just China, but also the US, Japan and Korea, who really are leading the world. What can the Midlands learn? Well, the Birmingham City Council has just put out its carbon emission reduction study, and that has a whole chapter on hydrogen. So it's central to the plans of Birmingham. So looking forwards, hydrogen is very likely to figure large in the, Birmingham's low carbon planning and also in the green recovery. As I mentioned, the LEP programme, which is there's a link to it there on the energy and low carbon group, and then things like the chambers of activities like the Chambers of Commerce Commonwealth Chamber is really useful device for also looking forward to developing new hydrogen-based projects. There's lots of opportunities to demonstrate the vision and Kevin will now introduce a future potential vision for the green recovery based or very much integrated in hydrogen and fuel cell technologies.
Hello, I'm from Adelan. My name is Kevin Kendall. The topic is Midlands Green Recovery Vision. Adelan has made pretty good progress over its 24 years of existence. Our first big project was 2008, where we had 5 of these hydrogen fuel cell battery vehicles made by Microcap running on the Birmingham University campus. It's very successful. We didn't hit any students over 5 years. Also, we introduced the first hydrogen station where the hydrogen was green, made from biofuel, and that was the first in the UK. Another big project was the 100 battery vehicle demonstration starting in 2009. And here's my car, the Mitsubishi. It was again very successful. I had the longest run, 46 miles door to door in all Midlands, and I just about made it. The battery cars have improved quite a bit since then. Then in 2012, we brought in 20 million euros from Brussels to try to demonstrate the hydrogen highway from Midlands to Germany. Of course, austerity killed that. But the fact was, industry was growing with technology, it did work, and it still has great potential, I believe. Because the final objective is air quality. We've got to beat China. China's got very bad air quality in many cities. Midlands is better. We still have high NOx and high particulates, but at least we're compatible with getting rid of fossil fuels, getting rid of carbon dioxide, and making health a priority. Now, problems appear in recent reports, mainly from universities, giving a confused picture of incompatible technologies. For example, who wants nuclear in the Midlands? Who wants ammonia as fuel? We're trying to get rid of diesel and combustion. And certainly storing energy in aluminium metal or in metal hydrides is not very sensible. So let's get rid of all these things immediately. We can move on to really 2 fuel cell types, the biofuel and hydrogen, and 2 technologies, fuel cells and batteries, which can help us to move more consistently. The technology chain has already started. We have renewable energy sources in wind, solar, bio, hydro, geo, and the grid. Remember, the grid is not really supported many of these technologies in the past, but hopefully it will in future, because we want good air quality and we want to go electric. So we still need fuels, we need storage, we need the fuel cells and batteries, and then we want the sectors, the high value sectors for manufacturing and exploitation in the Midlands to achieve these objectives. Let's consider batteries first, because the UK has been very late in recognising the battery prospect. We've known for 50 years that lithium is 3 times better than lead acid batteries, and of course it was invented in Oxford. But the UK has not supported batteries in homes, and it's not really supported battery cars very well. We have 1% penetration of battery cars right now. Norway has 50%. We've got to do better on these arguments. So typically, electric car sales in 2018, the UK was 8th in the league table after Sweden and France and Korea, etc. And it's even worse now. And the UK is not in the top 20 lithium battery producers. Asia is dominating in this right now. We have to catch up. Fuel cells, we've been slightly left behind by Asia, but hopefully we can catch up there. Remember, we did demonstrate this fuel cell hydrogen battery vehicle in 2008 in Birmingham. It was the first real demonstration in Britain. And the buses have now been successful in London, but not supported by the government. They come from Brussels, and that's going to stop, obviously. Birmingham City are bringing hydrogen buses, but they're broke, and there's some issues. And again, the clean air zone's coming to the Midlands, but they're not integrated with this bigger manufacturing and demonstration philosophy. Consider this truck. It doesn't exist in Britain at the moment. It's an American truck, hydrogen fuel cell battery truck. And we can do it. We've got lots of hydrogen. We've been burning waste hydrogen for the last 130 years. I used to work in that industry. And fuel cell companies have made progress. And now companies like JCB in the Midlands are expressing interest. Certainly Rolls-Royce have always been interested. And the electric companies are interested. There's no doubt the fuel cell hydrogen battery bus or truck beats the diesel. Nothing else can do it. The battery truck cannot beat the diesel. And if we have fuel cells, biopropane, biomethane in buildings, that could also be a great solution. Here's another Nikola truck. Nikola have brought in 20 billion of private investment into this field. They haven't done much yet, but everybody realizes this isn't going to happen in the next 5, 10, 20 years. And we must realize it in the Midlands. We know that hydrogen storage is 6 times cheaper and much lighter than lithium batteries, so it fits this transport application. And also it can fit buildings with biopropane and biomethane, so this could be crossing various sectors. The conclusion is the hydrogen fuel cell battery combination is best. We know the battery is too heavy, the charging time too long, but the fuel cell loves to charge the battery. And the hydrogen storage or the fuel storage can be great. It's low weight, much better than lithium, got rapid filling, 5 minutes rather than 5 hours, and a lower total cost. A big battery is expensive. The combination of battery and fuel cell is more economic. Let's give an example from Adelan. Go on a building site, construction site, you have a cabin for the workers. There's a diesel generator, it's noisy, inefficient, high emissions. If you put a fuel cell in to replace the diesel, you've got biopropane outside, this zero to low emissions, quiet and economic, and we're demonstrating this on HS2 sites. Another bit of good news, ITM Power, setting up B25-8BW, that's just outside Birmingham City Centre. You can fill your hydrogen vehicle in the Midlands. Also, biomethane, biodiesel is available for these other technologies. And microcab is still here. Here's a little van, it's an ideal delivery vehicle, and they're hoping to make that bigger so we can compete with those other delivery diesels. So the key point is, here's a typical product. I worked on these in China. There are now thousands of these, and I think they're working. We need at least one of these in the Midlands and more. Can we get rid of the 70,000 diesel trucks in the Midlands? I think we can. So first of all, let's get rid of confusing options. We don't want nuclear, we don't want ammonia, and we don't want aluminium storage of energy. The battery surge is good, and the fuel cells hopefully will also surge. We need to find these applications with high value and high popularity. And we need hydrogen and biofuels, and the industry can certainly support that. So what's the future? Well, in 2 years we have the Birmingham Games, and hopefully we can demonstrate hundreds of these types of applications in those games. The clean air zone is coming. Hopefully it's not just a bunch of penalties, hopefully there's some incentives for these newer technologies. HS2 is the engine for growth, and we're participating there. That could have a big effect, and hopefully our government centrally in London and also in the Midlands will support these ideas. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. That was a great run through of what could be integrated into the energy system of the Midlands. There are a couple of real examples there and local business examples, including microcab and Adelan's fuel cell in the construction cabin. We're just starting to get a few questions through. There's a couple around infrastructure and integration of fuel cells and hydrogen. I mean, infrastructure is key and integration is key also. So there's always the chicken and egg scenario with hydrogen and fuel cells. And so solid oxide fuel cells actually break that chicken and egg cycle because they can use existing hydrocarbons today. And let's face it, the current economy is based on hydrocarbons, but we'd like to transition to hydrogen or decarbonising gradually that system. So it's going to be important to have a future-proof technology which is available today and can be used today, but is also going to be hydrogen ready. So solid oxide fuel cells are one of those technologies. There was another question also around diesel and comment around diesel in city centres. I think that's absolutely critical. Diesel is the source of most of the particulates that come from vehicle emissions, and that's responsible for a significant health impact in all cities. This is not just Birmingham or Nottingham or Coventry or Loughborough. This is about all cities, and this is why technology is so critical to develop these new clean technologies that address those types of emissions. There are hydrogen and other low carbon options for most modes of transport, so there really isn't a need for diesel, but of course they have to be marketed and also demonstrated, and the fuels need to be available, so there is a time lag in that transition. Just one more comment and question. It's around the boilers. So yes, I think hydrogen boilers is certainly one technology to explore. We need to explore all technology options at this point, and there really needs to be an investment into all of those options to see what's market acceptable and which ones consumers like, because it's no good just us deciding what everybody's going to buy. I think it's realistic that customers are going to have an opinion, and we have to market test that to really understand what they want and what they're likely to buy. But what we know is that they want a low carbon option, so hydrogen boilers is certainly one option there. Just thinking, is there anybody else that has any questions at this point? Yeah, so there's a comment here about green recovery must be made in the UK and not rely on imports. I think COVID-19 and the prospect of Brexit is going to really make people consider global supply chains much more carefully, and reshoring of manufacturing is going to be a key thrust of current politics and looking forwards. So yes, Commonwealth Games is a great point to end on, I think, because these mega projects which are in the region, so we include Commonwealth Games, HS2 and the clean air zones. These are fantastic opportunities for local businesses to engage in these low carbon activities and to get that market understanding, which is so critical to developing technologies and products for the market. So it's a fantastic point that Japan have done a lot. There is a report. If anybody wants to contact me, I can send them a copy of that report. And they have done a significant amount. But remember that Japan were already doing a lot around fuel cells. They really lead the world in fuel cells and hydrogen. And they're not focusing just on hydrogen, by the way. They look at lots of different fuels for fuel cells, and hydrogen happens to be one of them. So it is a slightly different approach than the UK. But it's they're certainly very committed to it long term, and they've of course stepped away from nuclear, and that was a big impetus for that decision, as it has been in Germany as well, who also significantly invest in that area and the hydrogen and fuel cell technologies, especially in the transport sector, but also in boilers. Yes, the postcode. It will be on, the postcode will be on the video, so you can go back to that. I don't have it to hand, but maybe the chambers can just type that out, because I don't have access to it at the moment. Sorry about that. Asking about SOFC compared to PEM. Solid oxide fuel cells run at higher temperatures. They tend to use hydrocarbon fuels. So hydrogen is the only fuel used in PEM technology. They need quite high purity hydrogen as well, which is not widely distributed. So that's where the chicken and egg is more impactful, and they run at a lower temperature. So some significant differences. And again, if anybody wants to contact me, that's You can do that via the info@adelan.co.uk email. I'm happy to send out a reference to explain the differences. So I think the time is really running out for us. So if you do have any questions, you can always reach out to the chambers or to Adelan website directly. So it really remains for me to thank everyone for their attendance, and I hope that this will be a continuing conversation around the green recovery and the role that hydrogen and fuel cells can play in that. Thank you.